Good evening. I'm John Wensky, Chairperson of the Shrewsbury School Committee, and welcome to our meeting for Wednesday, March 12, 2025. Tonight's meeting is being broadcast live on Cellco channels 29 and 329 and streamed live on Shrewsbury Media Connection's website. Thank you to Shrewsbury Media Connection and Mark Serra for their assistance with this broadcast. Tonight's meeting will be rebroadcast on SMC's website and their YouTube channel between now and our next scheduled meeting on Wednesday, March 26th. The first item on our agenda is public participation. Tonight, we have not received any requests to speak at public participation. However, in the future, any and all residents that wish to address the committee regarding concerns pertaining to policy, budget, and performance of the superintendent should contact the chairperson prior to the next meeting. The next item on our agenda is chairpersons and members' reports. Colleagues, anything to report? Ms. Report.
Thank you. I have two things for tonight. One, I wanted to thank Parker Road Preschool in Floral Street for having me this past week as a community reader to celebrate Read Across America. I had preschool and then a kindergarten, actually it was a 2-for-1 kindergarten classroom, that we were able to read. They were amazing. Both classes were so engaged. It was really a good time. So thank you to both schools for having me. But also, I wanted to give a huge shout out to Sherwood. This past weekend, they put on Aladdin Kids, which was a great show. 5th and 6th graders, I don't know, I guess there was maybe about 50 students between the cast and the crew, did an amazing job, recreated Agrabah and did singing and dancing, and it was great. So the kids did a great job. It was such a it's such a good thing to get involved in, whether they continue on with it or not. But I also want to thank Tom O'Toole, Cindy Maurer. Cindy is a parent in the district who does not have students at Sherwood, but she stepped up to direct the play. She did a great job. Matt Jacobs was the music director. Gifty Egan did costume. Greg Marceau and Andrew Shoro also helped with lighting and sound. So thank you. It was a great show. I had an actor in it, but I would have gone either way. And she's looking forward to this coming weekend. We are going to go see Chicago up at the high school. Yeah. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Anything else to report? All right. Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is superintendent's report. Dr. Sawyer.
Thank you. I'm very much also looking forward to seeing Chicago this weekend, and anyone who wants to get tickets are available at the door. It's going to be actually Thursday, Friday, and Saturday evening, and the high school always does an amazing job with their spring musical, so we're looking forward to that. I also had the opportunity to attend Aladdin at Sherwood and want to underscore Mr. Rieferpour's message on how well the students did with that performance. It was really a joyful hour spent in the Sherwood gym. And want to also let the community know that the winter edition of the Shrewsbury School Journal has been printed. This is hot off the press. This will be going to every residential address in Shrewsbury. And there's a variety of interesting articles there about things that have been happening in the school district, and encourage people to read that, a front page article by Mr. Wensky about our budget planning and the work that we've been doing with a financial consultant around looking at history and projections for our fiscal situation in our school district, which thankfully is stable at this time. But I do want to thank Beth McCollum, who's the executive assistant to the superintendent, and Christina Luther, who is the designer for the Shrewsbury School Journal, for their excellent work to put this communication together for our community. And that is Superintendent's report this evening.
Great, thank you so much. The next item on our agenda is a time-scheduled appointment. It is a public hearing for our proposed fiscal year 2026 budget. The public and members of the school department are invited to provide input to the committee and the administration regarding the FY26 budget. The public hearing meets the requirements of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 71, Section 38N, which requires school districts to provide an opportunity for members of the public to be heard regarding the proposed school district budget. So with that, I will open the hearing to anybody that'd like to come to the podium here and address the committee about the FY26 budget. Not seeing anybody right away. Give a few minutes or minutes. I was about to say any comment, but we're waiting for somebody to step forward if anybody has any questions about the FY26 budget. No, there being no comments, I guess we can close the hearing. But we certainly wanted to give people an opportunity to address the committee if they had any concerns or questions or just comments about the FY26 budget. So with that, I will close the public hearing on the budget. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is under policy. It is a charter schools and school choice reports, school choice public hearing and vote on status of school choice for 2025-2026 school year. Mr. Girardi will provide enrollment and financial information relative to charter schools, school choice, virtual schools, and students who are homeschooled in the district. The report is enclosed. The school committee is required to hold an annual school choice hearing and vote on whether or not they wish to accept any school choice students from other communities for the upcoming school year. Tonight's public hearing will satisfy the requirements of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 76, Section 12B, which requires a public hearing prior to a potential school committee vote to not participate in or to otherwise restrict the provisions of the inter-district school choice program. Committee will vote on whether or not to participate in school choice following the public hearing. Given space constraints at the upper grade levels, the recommendation currently for 2025-2026 is to not open any new seats for the school choice students. So with that, I hand it over to Mr. Girardi.
Great, thank you. Nice summary. I will begin just a quick overview for tonight. These are enrollment and finances related to charter schools and school choice. And then we'll show some information on homeschool students as well. And then at the end, there will be the school choice hearing and vote. So having said that, we'll move into our charter school enrollment and history over just about 20 years. This is 19 years worth of data. And I think the trend shows, around 2016, or I think maybe after 2014-15, this information I think may align with some funding across the district, right? If you look at when times were tough, where their families looking for alternative places for their children to attend school because they may not have had the options they were looking for at the time. I'm hopeful to think that with the way that we've been able to add programming back to the district over time, that people aren't looking for those alternative options. The charter school enrollment has dropped to this year 22 students from 27 last year.
Just a reminder, that also coincided with the opening of the new Sherwood Middle School, because some people had concerns about the facility at the time as well.
Great, thank you. So of those 22 students, we have 5 schools in which they attend. Those are up here on the slides. The largest being the Advanced Math and Science Academy in Marlborough, where we have 14 students, and then we have a smattering of students at some other charter schools in the area. By grade level, we do have a few students at some younger grades, but again, I think where you're seeing the most students again is at the Advanced Math and Science Academy, and those students are at the upper levels. So we are anticipating 3 students matriculating at the end of their grade 12 year this year. So what does that mean for cost for Shrewsbury? Let me begin by saying that these tuitions are deducted from the state aid that the town receives for education. So unlike, say, a vocational enrollment, it is not a direct, it's not a direct line item on the school department budget, in our operating budget. The net cost for Shrewsbury for this current year is $351,397. We receive $57,377 for state reimbursement, and that is, again, that is at full funding this year. So that the annual average cost per pupil for this year is just under $16,000. Again, looking ahead to next year, we have those 3 students matriculating on. Some initial information shows us there's about 23 students projected for next year. that is carrying forward the students that are currently there. We have no information that would tell us that they would be returning from Shrewsbury from their current charter school placement. So switching over to school choice, the last time that school committee voted to accept school choice students was in 2016. It was limited to 30 students spread across 4 grade levels with 27 seats filled out of those 30 spots. And the reason why school choice was voted to be accepted in 2016 was due to a lack of resources to maintain programming staff. So it was a financial reason. To show a 10-year enrollment history of us sending students and receiving students. Here are the numbers here. You can see that the red numbers since 2016-17 have slowly started to be on the slight decline. In recent years, they're coming close to coming to an end. They did moderate up, or they did increase through the pandemic, and they've had a slight dip this year after a high of 57 in 23-24. So currently this year, we have 7 students that we are receiving for school choice. Again, $5,000 per student. That's $35,000 that we receive in our school choice revolving fund. Out of those sending districts, we have 4 from Worcester, 2 from Boylston, 1 from Westboro. And as you can see, 3 of them are 12th graders with the understanding that they're going to move on next year, which would leave us 4 students. And this is the kind of the end of the group from that 2016 acceptance, where they came in at younger years. They have moved through the grades, and those final 4 students in grade 10 will be the last of that cohort. So we receive students in, but we also have students who go out and who choose to go to other, and this slide here is to other public schools in the area. So we have 18 students who attend other public schools, and they range from a few at the elementary level with a larger amount in the upper grades, 2 in grade 8, and then 13 total at the high school. And these are the sending districts by destination. Those students on the left are the ones who attend the public schools, and we see that there's 5 from Worcester, a few at Uxbridge, Berlin, Boylston, Grafton, Auburn, Douglas, Millbury. Apologies for those who are trying to read up or down as I was jumping around a little bit. And then on the right-hand side, again, a lot, but we have students who attend the Greater Commonwealth Virtual District and the Tech Connections Academy Commonwealth. These are our virtual schools. And they are considered to be school choice sending students. And I'll get to those students in just a few moments. So here's a 10-year history of the students that have attended either that were sent out in school choice or that were received in school choice, and the tuitions that are associated with them. In the green columns, as you can see, as we head down to 2025, that column in yellow, that row in yellow, we have 7 students this year with $35,000 being received, and that is projected at the end of FY25. Sending, there are 47 students that we're sending, both between students attending the typical public school and the virtual schools. And depending on which of these programs, there's a cost increment for each of them. So the virtual school enrollment, we have 19 students enrolled at TECA, and that's $9,036 per student. We have 10 students at the Greater Worcester Commonwealth Virtual School, and that's $8,196 per student. And our virtual school enrollment makes up 61% of all school choice students. So about just under two-thirds of our school choice students are choosing a virtual school. And here's just a brief history of students attending the state virtual schools, 2017 to present. You can see in 2024-25, there are 29 students currently there. That's down a few students from last year. But the trend had been ticking up since 2019 with more students attending each year, 2018. Finally, we have homeschool students. We are tracking these students, and this year we have 40 students who are being homeschooled. Again, that's up from last year from 30. This number has fluctuated a bit over the past few years. And again, this has been an option for families, through the pandemic times and just different options that they may have been looking for. Now that we're kind of post-COVID, the 30 last year and 40 this year, we're going to keep an eye on how this number is trending as we move beyond, move out of those years. So to summarize, charter school enrollment has remained lower than in the past with a significant, there's a net benefit to the town of Shrewsbury and the school department finances. And the state is currently fulfilling its reimbursement commitment. Our school choice sending enrollment has decreased a bit from 24-25, and virtual school enrollment is moderating since the pandemic. And once students are enrolled at any grade level, and this is an important piece, once students are enrolled at any grade level, they have a right to stay through grade 12. And that's, I think, a big piece of the conversation when it comes to school committee considering, school choice seats for this year. And school committee is required to hold the school choice hearing, vote on whether or not they wish to accept any school choice students from other communities for the upcoming 25-26 school year. And I've showed this slide in the past, but I think it's also important, whereas we may have pockets of space in elementary schools, potentially even at the middle school next year, and potentially in some coming years. The high school still continues to remain at very high capacity. And as you can see here, we did the McKibben report back in, received it in 22. That report projected 2025 or October 1st, 2025 data to show 1,900 students, and right now we're projecting 1,899. So the McKibben report is kind of right on pace with what our actual numbers are. So that's just a piece that I want to present to the community and to the school committee as part of your consideration for the vote.
Great, thank you for the report. Colleagues, any questions or comments before we, yes, Stephanie?
A quick question, if you don't mind, Mr. Doherty. Would you mind going back to the slide of the two different school options for virtual school? What's the difference between the two? You have one, there's a $1,000 tuition difference, but there's also a different allotment of students in each one. I think you had one, maybe the next slide back or forward. So there's, I don't know what slide it was, I'm sorry. Those two programs, how is it decided? Is the family deciding? Is it in recommendation of the counselor that this program is maybe better, or how are they different?
Sure, and I'm assuming that there's many iterations of how a family would land on that, but
other than having the name virtual school, I don't really know how to know much about them, so
right.
What should I know?
I think ultimately it depends on the family's decision around the type of programming that they're looking for.
Okay.
And I wish I had more information on what those two programs, what they offered and what makes them different, and Dr. Sawyer may have some more knowledge to that. But those two programs on the right side are what we call our virtual schools. The ones on the left, again, are the typical public schools that they would receive students to.
And these are virtual schools that are approved by the Department of Education. They're
Okay.
Approved as state authorized virtual schools that any family in Massachusetts can access through school choice. They essentially apply to the school. If there's room in the school will accept them. And they essentially attend school online. They
Okay.
become a student of that school. They're no longer enrolled in the Shrewsbury Public Schools. And there's a variety of reasons why families make that choice. Sometimes it's a version of homeschooling, but they want there to be, the parents aren't doing the schooling themselves. The educators through the virtual school are doing that. There's been sometimes situations with students who, for a variety of reasons, the family doesn't feel would be as successful in a traditional public school. And so, obviously that spiked a bit during the year when we came back from COVID for families who were not comfortable having their students come into the school environment physically. But the rates are set by the Commonwealth in terms of the
Thank you.
tuition
That's-
based on the programming that is proposed by the school to the DESE for authorization.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Just how did those different tuitions get established and sort of who has oversight there? So it's at the state level. Thank you very much. I appreciate the report.
Okay. Any further questions or comments, Ms. Boucher?
Just had a question on the homeschooled students. It looks like the number ticked up a bit this year to about 10 students. And just wondering, do we track the grade levels of the students, or do we have any information about, in case they do come, we have to absorb them back in?
We do, and those families are kind of overseen by Ms. Clowder and the curriculum instruction and assessment team. So there's a curriculum that they have to follow that has to be approved by the district, and we have to make sure that they are following that curriculum the way that they intend to.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Further questions, comments on the reports? Okay, then I move to open the public hearing specific to school choice. If there's anybody that would like to address the committee about school choice and the recommendation, if you please come forward to the podium. Not seeing any. So kind of a slow night. All right, so I will close the hearing and take any further comments from the committee. Good. We do need to take a vote, and the recommendation is for Shrewsbury Public Schools to not participate in school choice. So there being no further comments, I need a motion that the committee vote to not participate in interdistrict school choice for the 2025-2026 school year.
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please do so by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. All right. The next item on our agenda is also under policy. It's a first reading of two new policies. Policy 582, graduation requirements for high school, and then policy 583 on competency determination for high school diploma. Actually, let me just revise that. So the new policy is 583, competency determination for high school diploma, and an update to policy 582, which is graduation requirement for high school, just to clarify. So with that, maybe to lead us off, our policy subcommittee is Ms. Shrewsbury and Ms. Boucher. So if you want to walk us through.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Wensky. So in order for a student to receive a diploma from Shrewsbury High School, the student must satisfy both the local graduation requirements established by the school committee and also earn the Commonwealth of Massachusetts competency determination in 3 subjects. English, math, science, technology, and engineering is the state competency requirement, and that's required by state law, and it has been amended by the statewide ballot question in November of 2024. This amended law now states that the competency determination can be earned satisfactorily by completing coursework certified by the student's district and showing mastery of certain skills, competency, and knowledge contained in academic standards and curriculum frameworks in areas measured by the MCAS tests. So in response to this change, the school committee, policy committee, we've in working with the district leadership, we've developed a new competency determination for the high school diploma policy and have updated also the local graduation requirements for the high school and for review tonight. The competency determination is to respond to the requirement that a local policy be adopted regarding the competency determination now that the MCAS testing is no longer going to be accepted. And the high school graduation requirement, the local requirement, the policy's been updated to kind of reflect this new competency determination policy, to incorporate it by reference, and also to update some other updated descriptions of the graduation requirements to reflect the most recent program of studies at Shrewsbury High School. So we're going to be posting these policies for public viewing tomorrow in advance of a planned vote at our next public meeting on the 26th of March. And Mr. Bidzidla, I don't know if you'd like to give some more context around maybe the different coursework that's
Yeah, sure.
required.
I think the policy, we worked on this with the district leadership and certainly had some input into it. And our group took a look at what other school districts across the state are doing in response to the ballot question that was passed in November, and came up with, I think, a policy that reflects the will of the people and the voters. In terms of coursework, the way the policy is written in terms of English, students have to pass up to two English classes up to grade 10, 9 and 10. And additionally, in mathematics, we listed in this policy the courses that would qualify for competency determination up to Algebra Geometry 2, and there's other courses in there. And also 4 science courses that would meet the requirement. All these courses are aligned with state frameworks and state standards, which are the benchmark for what MCAS is based upon. So we're confident, based on our instruction and what happens within the high school, that students who successfully pass these courses would be eligible for the competency determination. Currently, to my knowledge, there'll be no one at SHS that is in jeopardy of not graduating as a result of this policy. We've had really good success with MCAS since I've been at the high school. We've had very few students not meet the competency determination by graduation. There has been instances, and I can say probably on one hand in the 20 years I've been at the high school, where students haven't met the competency determination. Some of those we've had struggles of students coming in, very few, like one hand. Also transfer students that come in from either another state and can't meet the testing schedule, the MCAS testing schedule at the time. So they'd have to take the MCAS testing when they had a competency determination in June after graduation. Those students had met the competency determination and were awarded their diplomas once the state confirmed their passing of the MCAS. So currently, in my conversation with Mrs. Monopoly at the high school, who oversees our MCAS administration, no one in the class of 2025, this policy would impact anyone in that class, and we certainly are looking even backward to graduates who, students who attended, to make sure that the change hasn't impacted their status. Additionally, within the policy of 583, we took in consideration that transfer language that gives us the flexibility to review students' transcripts wherever they may be from different states and even different countries, to get corresponding coursework to ensure that they'll meet the competency determination as long as they meet the standards of the baseline of our courses listed within this policy. We're confident around the construction of the policy that we won't present any more obstacles than currently are there. I do think that the MCAS testing certainly provides us great data and helps us inform our instruction in terms of meeting state standards and frameworks. So I know we have that coming up this week. I talked to Dr. Sawyer. My communication to 10th grade families is like, it's still a really important test. Regardless if there's a competency determination required by the state or not, and the voters eliminated that, we still have to administer the MCAS testing, and it's still going to be publicized. And as you well know, I think a number of people who moved into our community as a result of the great education and results that we have are somewhat tied to MCAS results, right? I think that goes across the state. So for the families in the audience that are listening tonight, if you have a 10th grader or a 9th grader, we're going to continue MCAS testing at Shrewsbury High School this spring. We certainly want them to do the best they possibly can and give their best efforts to reflect our great community and our great teachers and our great school system. And certainly when we look at property values, which are closely tied to academic outcomes in high schools and school systems, that certainly is one metric that people look at. So for people at home listening, let's make sure we prepare our students and have them to take the test very seriously and get a good reflection of what we're about in this community. So I'll certainly answer any other questions you may have. I would say policy 582 is just a direct reflection upon just eliminating the competency language, like Ms. Boucher said, the state competency MCAS determination language that was in our graduation requirements policy, which has been struck from the new policy or amended. So overall, I think the subcommittee has done a really good job with it, so thank you.
Great. Colleagues, any comments, questions? The first reading? So this is the first reading, so we certainly want to hear from the public if they have any questions about the revision or the new policy pertaining to this topic. Dr. Sawyer, any further comments?
I appreciate Ms. Monopoly's contribution, Mr. Bizzillo, Ms. Belcito, and Ms. Clouder also joined us, all met a couple of different times to talk about what the ins and outs were. One of the updates to 582, the current graduation requirements, to make sure it captures our longstanding practice that students who receive a certificate of attainment also participate in the graduation ceremony. These are students who wouldn't be working towards a competency determination, but have earned all the other elements of the graduation requirements. In addition to that, I think just to again be clear, the competency determination is the state law setting the sort of minimum standard for a high school diploma in Massachusetts. And because the language in the ballot question that updated the law indicated that the local coursework had to align with what the MCAS tested, the MCAS tested 9th and 10th grade content. Typically, students took the science MCAS at the end of 9th grade when they finished whatever course they were in 9th grade and took that particular subject test. And sometimes it would be in sophomore year, so depending. And then that 2-year sequence to cover the frameworks that the MCAS covered, the 2 math classes or the 2 English classes that have been referenced in the draft policy. But again, it's two-pronged. The local requirements are certainly much more robust. They've served us well. In terms of some update in the future, Governor Healy has established a graduation council to look at how the state's competency determination might evolve. I expect that process is probably going to take 1 year to 2 years at the state level. And depending on the outcome of that, whether that has impact, it certainly would have impact on this new policy about the competency determination itself. Whether or not that would cause the district to consider any changes to its graduation policy in and of itself remains to be seen. But I think it's wise to wait and see how that starts to evolve at the state level. Because right now, certainly the focus, we have a very strong program. Our focus and our time and energy is focused on our strategic priorities right now. I think this is something we need to do to respond to what the state's requiring us, and I think it reflects that new legal requirement. So appreciate the work that the subcommittee did to work with us on this, and obviously any feedback people have in advance of a vote 2 weeks from this evening.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is also under Finance and Operations. It is a report on the fiscal year 2026 special education budget. Annually, the leadership of the Special Education and Pupil Personnel Services Department provides information regarding programming for students who are eligible for special education or other student services and review key budget information projected for the following fiscal year. Tonight, we have the Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, Meg Belcito, here to present the report to the committee. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Let me just get this to mirror. Okay. So, thank you for having me tonight. This is one of the best photos I've received so far this school year, so I had to absolutely use it as soon as I possibly could. The smiles alone can brighten anybody's day. So, our department this year has certainly been reflecting on a lot of progress. I want to take a moment to express our deep gratitude for the dedication and hard work of our entire staff. Special education and student services operate within a complex landscape shaped by the diverse needs of our students in a continually evolving regulatory framework. Despite the challenges, our district remains unwavering in its commitment to fostering an inclusive learning environment where every student can succeed. Thanks to the expertise, collaboration, and tireless efforts of our educators, specialists, support staff, we continue to provide the academic, social, and emotional support our students need to reach their full potential. Their contributions make all the difference, and we are incredibly grateful for their commitment to our students' success. Special education and student services are dedicated to identifying and supporting students with disabilities who require specialized instruction or accommodation through IEPs and 504 plans. We prioritize inclusion, equity, and the least restrictive environment, empowering students to thrive. Through strong collaboration with families, staff, and the community, we offer high-quality, evidence-based services that foster both academic and social-emotional growth. This commitment ensures that Shrewsbury Public Schools continue to uphold high expectations and provide effective resources for all learners. Our budget supports key district initiatives, including supervising all special education and student services staff, ensuring compliance with state and federal special education and 504 requirements, managing special education records, plans, and reports, overseeing out-of-district placements, coordinating services with public and private agencies, maintaining program options for students in and outside of our district, staffing our summer special education program, handling circuit breaker, Medicaid, seeking and managing state and federal grants, leading professional development on co-teaching, the new IEP, alternatives to discipline, and mental and behavioral health, and specialized programs including transition services, and one of our favorite things to talk about, our retail store, Maple and Main. During this school year, Shrewsbury Public Schools participated in an integrated monitoring review conducted by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. The purpose of the integrated monitoring review is to monitor compliance with regulatory requirements focusing on special education and civil rights. Of the 29 elements in special education and civil rights that were reviewed, the district was compliant with an implementation in all elements, with a partial implementation finding in the licensure area with just 2 staff members. A human resources corrective action plan has been submitted and accepted by the Department of Education. When we gathered on the very first day of school, I shared a quote from the beloved Mr. Rogers: "Anyone who does anything to help a child in his life is a hero." I wanted to remind our staff of the profound role they play in the lives of our students. They are the heroes, not just in the traditional sense, but in a way that deeply is transformative. They are the heroes who help, empower, respect, and open doors of opportunity for all students, with and without disabilities. We wanted to recognize some of our staff who have gone above and beyond, embodying the very essence of heroism in our schools. So I send out a simple Google form every month asking staff to nominate colleagues who make a difference in the buildings and the lives of their students. We want to celebrate and honor those who go above and beyond. To date, 120 staff have received this distinction. Each month, I announce the nominations, and the software program we use, S'more, allows me to see how many views each newsletter receives, and on average, the newsletter is viewed over 1,000 times. To me, that shows that staff want to share the good work of their colleagues, and we are so very grateful for the work that is done each and every day. And as you can see, that is the logo that we use this year as our theme, and we currently have 372.5 full-time employees. The chart here depicts the various roles across student services, from directors to the RISE coordinator, Maple and Main's retail manager, all of our therapists, clinicians, clinical coordinators, all of the para-educators, our special education teachers, moderate and severe and intensive, our nurses, our team chairs, and our secretaries. As of March 2025, we have 951 students with active IEPs or individualized education programs for ages 3 through 21 who are accessing special education services with specially designed instruction. The concurrent data indicated that there are 48 students with active referrals for special education. This number is included in our total number of 999 students. Students in referral are considered special education students until eligibility has been determined. The chart breaks down the educational disability across the district by eligibility of service. As it has been historically, qualification under autism remains our highest primary area of educational disability category. A 504 accommodation plan supports students with a documented disability that limits one or more major life functions. While these students do not require specially designed instruction, they need specific classroom accommodations to ensure equal access to education. Currently, we have 446 students receiving accommodations through 504 plans, up from 403 in the previous fiscal year. Additionally, 4 students are in the referral process for eligibility. The primary disability category for 504 eligibility remains health, including conditions such as ADHD, food allergies, diabetes, asthma, and other health-related challenges. The district also notes a growing trend in students with emotional disabilities qualifying for 504 plans. The Student Services Department remains dedicated to supporting all students through both processes. There continues to be an increasing trend of students qualifying for 504 accommodation plans, and individualized education program seems to be relatively stable based on the data collected over the past 5 years. This increase is due to a large number of referrals, students moving into our district, students with both IEPs and 504s, continued child find activities, and the continued impact of the school closure and our mental health crisis. Extended school year services support students with disabilities who qualify due to the nature of their disability or severity of their disability, or due to a substantial regression and/or significant difficulty with recoupment during the school year. Eligibility and data tracking are vital to making informed, data-driven decisions about the level of support needed. Each year, this information is carefully reviewed during team meetings. Throughout the school year, extended school year coordinators and special education leaders collaborate on key program elements, including staffing, organization, recommendations, and service qualifications. Student recommendation forms are thoughtfully evaluated to create tailored programming for those needing extended school year services. Last summer, 261 students accessed ESY services, but this number only represents a portion of the program. Many students who participate in the academic intensive and ELC programs also receive multiple related services weekly, which require additional staff to complete all the services during the summer. We had 261 students. 93 students required intensive support through professional staff and/or one-to-one support from an ABA technician. We had 27 professional staff last summer. We are committed to providing services in the least restricted environment, empowering students and ensuring access to education that builds on their individual strengths and abilities. However, some students with more significant needs may require a more restrictive setting to make meaningful progress. When determining the appropriate program, district teams carefully consider placements that offer increasing level of support beyond the public school setting. Approved out-of-district programs vary in restrictiveness, with some classified as substantially separate placements. These include our collaborative programs within schools and community-based settings for students aged 18 to 22 who could receive entitlement services, public day placements, private day placements, which are 766 approved through the state, serve students who require an even more restrictive placement, and for students who have significant disability and safety needs, we do have some students in residential placements. Here you'll find a breakdown of the placements of our current student population accessing their education at a more intense level of programming. The Special Education Department continually evaluates the profiles of students requiring more restrictive placements. This multi-tiered approach involves analyzing the demographics of students in out-of-district placements to determine whether their needs could be met within the district and identifying supports necessary for a successful transition to a less restrictive setting. As of March 1st, the district projects 47 students to be placed out of district for the 25-26 school year. We have some factors contributing to lower out-of-district numbers. We have the development of two in-house programs, our RISE program for students age 18 to 22, and our therapeutic learning classroom that keeps students within Shrewsbury rather than outsourcing to external programs. We've enhanced over the past few years, as you know, therapeutic supports, increasing access to services which provide students with support they need within the district. We also have ongoing professional development, training in collaborative problem solving, positive behavioral interventions and support, which equips our staff with strategies to support student needs. Recently, we've also had safety care crisis intervention class for families. The impact of our in-district programs, as a couple examples, by keeping these programs in district, the school district avoids tuition costs and provides local tailored support. The actual savings could be even higher because transportation costs are not included in the estimated $1.86 million it would cost to educate these students outside of the district. Additionally, in-district programs allow students to remain in their community, which can improve their educational and social experiences. So as an example, if we were to take the 22 RISE students at an average cost of $70,000 per student, that would be $1.5 million. And that's not including transportation. Of the 4 students in our TLC program, an average cost for a placement like that outside of the district averages around $80,000 without transportation, and that would be about $320,000. And that's where we came up with the $1.86 million. The out-of-district budget is fluid, adjusting as students enter approved special education programs. The Operational Services Division of the state, OSD, sets the tuition rates with a 3.67 increase for Chapter 766 approved schools in the upcoming fiscal year. OSD regulates the individual price authorization for specialized services beyond the standard tuition, such as one-to-one support. These additional costs are determined by the program or the provider. Due to fluctuating placement, projections may change. The current FY26 budget estimate for out-of-district expenditures is $7.63 million, subject to adjustments before the final recommendation in April. This chart details projected student placements by tuition cost. Everyone's favorite topic, circuit breaker reimbursement. As you know, special education circuit breaker reimbursement is the program that provides additional state funding to districts for high special education costs. Reimbursements are based on the previous year's expenses. Each winter and spring, the Student Services Office submits claim forms, which you see to the right of that chart, qualifying services and tuitions that are met the state threshold formula. I have to say a special thank you to Anne-Marie Tyler and Denise Barros in our office, who spend many, many hours on these claim forms. Eligibility is determined by costs exceeding 4 times the state's average foundation budget per pupil, as calculated under Chapter 70. The state may reimburse up to 75% of the costs above this threshold, subject to appropriation. The circuit breaker account is crucial in helping our school district manage higher cost special education placements without impacting other educational programs in the district. For our out-of-district placements, total tuition costs are estimated to decrease by 3.02% in FY26, based on the currently projected placements and tuition rates for next year. The actual enrollment in out-of-district schools changes within each school year and from year to year, as new students may be placed in and out of district. Students return to an in-district placement, students move in and out of our town, or students graduate or age out when they turn 22 years old. So pretty complex. The net amount budgeted for our out-of-district tuitions in the school department's town appropriated budget in the initial superintendent's FY26 budget recommendation is estimated to decrease by 7.67%. This is due to an estimated $239,423,000 reduction in total tuition costs, while utilizing $32,315 more in circuit breaker funding to offset these costs compared to the current year, in order to maintain an estimated circuit breaker fund balance of 50% of the maximum, which this chart has been very helpful, and I thank Dr. Sawyer and Chris Girardi for their support in working through all of these various complex parts of circuit breaker. In special education, we have 2 grants that we wanted to talk to you about. The 240 grant, which is our very large grant, primarily funds the RISE program and special education transportation, while also allocating funds for proportionate share and disproportionality. The 240 IDEA grant requires districts to address proportionate share and significant disproportionality as part of their federal obligations under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. Under IDEA, school districts must allocate a portion of the 240 grant funding to support eligible students with disabilities who are privately placed or homeschooled within district's geographic boundaries. This applies even if the students are not residents of the district. We have an annual calculation where our district determines the proportionate share based on the number of privately placed and homeschooled students with active IEPs. We have a consultation requirement where we must engage in meaningful consultation with 7 local private schools at least 3 times per year. We have a service allocation where funds must be used to support eligible students through academic interventions, executive functioning support, social emotional services, and curriculum materials. Significant disproportionality is the federal law that states that we need to monitor and address racial and ethnic disparities in special education identification, placement, and discipline. If a district exceeds the state's risk ratio threshold, it must reallocate funds and take corrective action. In 2024, Massachusetts lowered the threshold from 4.0 to 3.0, meaning a racial or ethnic group identified at that 3 times rate of others is flagged. Shrewsbury has exceeded this threshold for white students with a health impairment and must take action. We are mandated to take 15% of our 240 grant, around $250,000, and use this for intervention and corrective strategies. We submitted a plan to the Department of Education, and it outlined steps to reduce the over-identification and disparities in special education services and discipline. By meeting these requirements, the district ensures compliance with IDEA while promoting equitable access to special education services for all students. For us, this year, the funding's been utilized to support initiatives from the May Institute, which is our positive behavioral interventions and supports professional development, collaborative problem solving, psychological consultation from Dr. Alice Hirschberg for our therapeutic learning program, Dr. Lisa Deeker for co-teaching, the Bloom Method application to support the new IEP. We have Lexia Reading. We have software that's used throughout the district for both Bloom and Lexia. We have PBIS leads in teams in each of the building receiving a stipend, and we have structured reading leads. These initiatives also support addressing 2 major district strategic goals: implementing common processes for interventions and supports to ensure all students are making effective progress with academic, social, emotional, and behavioral, and that would be including our PBIS, and our implement a therapeutic program at the elementary grade span to provide specialized support for students who qualify due to significant social, emotional, and behavioral needs. We also work with a lot of contracted providers who help us with mandated services and support for students with low incidence disabilities. These specialists offer expertise in various areas, including psychiatry, orientation and mobility, teacher of the visually impaired, teacher of the deaf. We have home-based services, teacher of the deaf-blind, audiological services, augmentative and alternative communication, and assistive technology. We're recommending a total of around $513,000 for these services next year, which is about $33,000 more than this fiscal year. Student Services continuously assesses staffing needs to ensure students receive necessary support while promoting independence. Our programs have led to increased student autonomy and progress across all educational domains. Special education involves navigating diverse student needs, legal requirements, and resource allocation. Compliance with IDEA, Section 504, require careful planning and documentation. Effective IEPs are developed through collaboration among educators, parents, and stakeholders, aligning with academic standards and best practices. Strategic resource allocation, including personnel, funding, assistive technology, PD, it's essential for our students' success. Strong collaboration among educators, staff, administrators, external agencies ensures a supportive, inclusive environment that fosters academic, social, and emotional growth. Through observations, analysis, and collaborative conversations with administrators and staff, the following positions will further develop the Shrewsbury Public Schools Student Services Program with integrity and consistency next year. Positions needed to meet our increased need for mandated services would be 1 ELC coordinator at Sherwood Middle School to address the increasing population of students with autism and complex profiles within that program. We're moving from 14 students to 23 students next year there. We also are mandated and need an adjustment counselor to address social, emotional, and behavioral health needs at Coolidge Elementary School. Next year, we are increasing our students in the RISE program from 22 to 26 students, which will require another para educator, job coach for RISE. So, in conclusion, special education and student services operate within that complex landscape I started this conversation this evening about. It's shaped by our diverse needs of students and our ever-evolving framework. Despite the challenges, our district is unwavering in its commitment to creating an inclusive learning environment where every student can succeed. Through the dedication and expertise of our staff, who I do believe are heroes, strategic use of our resources, and strong collaborative partnerships, we will continue to support the academic, social, and emotional growth of students with disabilities, ensuring they reach their full potential. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the report.
I know that was a lot of information
A lot to unpack.
in a short amount of time.
No, thank you so much. Colleagues, questions or comments? Ms. Efron?
Sure. Thank you so much, Ms. Bolsito. It is incredibly complex, and I actually just wanted to take just a second to sort of point out, I think it's like your third slide, the responsibilities within this department are the most heady, complicated, challenging that we sort of have in the district, right? And in many ways, and there are most people, when they do numbers, they number up to 3 or 4, and you're up to 10. Really complicated areas, everything from Medicaid to the professional development of staff to trying to bring on new programs. It's just, I think there are some who maybe don't perceive all of that. Maybe they didn't experience, or they haven't had students who had to experience those needs for support, and think that, school has a model to it that, frankly, for the programming that you're running, may look and feel very different than it did just a few decades ago. And so when we think and talk about things like what is mandated or what are required, it's sort of this list often that's at the forefront of our minds, and yet it's so hard to summarize quickly because it took 10 bullet points to get through, right? And yet at the same time, as I think about, the incredible work you're doing, I love your Be a Hero work. I think it's, trying to create a great culture in the school system is so important. But when I look at our budget book, we have 968 total staff in the district. If you just looked at the line items of teachers, nurses, and counselors, who is one, and para educators, that is 874. I'm going to round up. And 43% of them are in this department, right? It's like, and so those who are delivering education every day, not only do they have the skill set that they need to do the work, and we hope all the professional development and other such things, but it is a vast majority of what we are doing, just by volume alone. I love the photos. I love the happy kids too. But when I think about trying to communicate to those about what is different or hard or challenging about delivering education today, I think you've given us a lot for people to digest on. It's more complex than it may seem at first blush. So I just want to appreciate you and your staff for all of that. I think it helps us to tell a better story to those who need to pay attention and understand. Why are my property taxes here? Here's what we're looking at, right? And I think the work that you have done in particular that deserves calling out to ensure that more young people can be educated within the district, that doesn't come without a cost, right? So if we laser focus on out of district, and we can all be happy the out of district numbers are going down, right? That's nice and it's good, probably, if we can support students, but it often is coming in reciprocally that we're adding more staff or different kinds of staff in order to help ensure that those young people can stay in the district. So whether that's the RISE program for older students or the couple of additional staff that you need in order to make sure that we can address the needs of students within our buildings, I think those are smart and strategic investments that make a lot of sense and ultimately give we hope kids and families a better overall educational experience. So when I think of why a lot of families move to Shrewsbury for the school system, a lot of it is what's in this deck, right? And what we're providing to some of our kiddos who have some needs that need a little extra care and tending. And I'm really proud of the work that you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Further comments, Ms. Ruth before?
Also, thank you. You stole most of what I was going to say, but to highlight that,
look
I
this way
really, I really love the emails that come out about the Be a Hero. 120 staff. So when I pulled up one of the emails that you had sent, I love the fact that it's 120 staff. They're all different. It's different names. They're different jobs. They have different, and there's, it's not just nominating somebody. There's like full stories that come with it too. And we've done things like this at work where you're trying, you want to recognize your staff, and it's like pulling teeth. You get the same two people that just keep getting nominated, and you're like, I can't put you back in this thing. But this isn't the problem, because we have so many stars in the district that are doing what they don't think is above and beyond. But when we look at it, we're like, wow, like that is a lot. And if you think about what they're doing. So thank you for highlighting each of these staff, and it's amazing. And I hope that they feel seen, that we see you. But also too, and I wanted to go back to last year when you were here, and some of the investments that we made is, last year you pivoted pretty quickly to make the therapeutic program because you saw what was happening in the district. We had to respond. So you kind of like quickly, I think last year, you're like, I had this idea and I threw a text together, and this all came together really quickly. And that has been such a support in the district. So can you talk a little bit quickly? You don't have to go into detail because I'm just throwing this at you now, but how that has worked out, how that's panned out over the last year, and like success stories that have come out of having that program, because that is something like we totally stood behind, but how did that pan out the way that you wanted it to, or better?
We have an incredible team, and we actually are hoping to come back and give you a presentation on the therapeutic program. The team that came together and continues to work together, that helped design, collaborate, work with staff, referrals, families, to understand the need in the district. I can't say enough about the work that they do each and every day. Currently, right now, we have 4 students in the program. I believe we'll have 2 more referrals. The adjustment counselor within the program, the special education teacher within the program, the clinical coordinator that supports the program, work on a daily basis to ensure that the students are working towards entering the general education classroom. They may start their day in the therapeutic program, but our goal is always to have them back in the classroom with their peers. Of the 4 students, one in particular is probably about 80 to 90%, and I might have that percentage wrong, and they might be hearing me say this right now and saying it's 95% back in the classroom with coming out for check-ins. So we're already seeing progress. We did have a student move out of the district, but then we had a referral, so the number has stayed around 4. The students that are being referred, it's complicated because it is a very restrictive placement. So we want to be really careful about who gets referred into the program. So all tiers of intervention within our buildings have been used prior to a referral. So tier 1, all with the general education teacher. Tier 2, it might be more support from a counselor or a small group with a teacher. Tier 3 is when it's starting to get more intensive. Things aren't working with a behavior plan. They make the next step with the counselor and the team to think about if a referral to the program is appropriate. That's probably a very shortened version, but we would love to come and share about this school year with all of you and the community, so people understand what the goal of the program is, and why we put it into place, and what our next steps, because one thing that we've talked about is if the student isn't back into the general education classroom by the end of 4th grade, and then we don't have the program in 5th grade, what's the goal? What's our thinking? Where are we headed next? I can tell you right now, the team that's in place would be happy to keep designing and creating, and there's a lot of pieces to that, so it's not that simple, like we're just gonna, open up a program and keep growing and growing. So there's a lot that goes into it, and we'll see how it goes. But right now, we're in a very good place. So that's kind of short version, but if we can come back, we definitely will.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Ritz?
That was my question too, just thinking about that last year and, looking at how quickly you and your team responded. And it would have been easier just to say, well, this is a group of students or a population that we would have to put out of district because we don't have the resources. So thank you for that. It looks like it's working, and I think that's just another kind of hallmark of our district and the program that you run. It's always very thoughtful, not just from a budgetary standpoint, but really it's student-centered. What's going to be best for the student and their families, and it's working, and it also does work for our budget as well. So thank you. I'm just really glad that that's working, and I can't wait to see this report.
Thanks.
Ms. Boucher?
I just had a question about the recommendations for 2025-2026 school year, and if you could just go into a little detail just to explain the need for the ELC coordinator at Sherwood and why we feel that position is necessary to be added.
Sure. So every single elementary school, well, our preschool through elementary, we have substantially separate programming called our ELC for students primarily on the autism spectrum, but also could just have complex learning needs that have characteristics of a student with autism. The numbers are increasing across most of the elementary schools, and we've been seeing that. What's happening is that now they're leaving their elementary schools and they're converging onto Sherwood. So we are seeing a large increase, and we're going from, I believe it's 22 to, I'm confusing that with Rise, hold on.
I think it's 14 to 23.
Thank you. We are going from 14 to 23 students, and that's a very large increase. Most ELC programs are around 14 to 15, 16 students, but having 23 students in one ELC classroom is just far too much based on the needs of the learning profiles that we see. So we do believe another ELC coordinator, have the two classrooms, and then that way each coordinator would have 13 to 14 students each with the paraeducators or the ABA technicians supporting. So that's essentially the bottom line, is that they're substantially separate students that require a higher level of service.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd like to thank you for the report and explaining the complex world of special education and student services and simplifying it for us. It's not always easy for us to kind of wrap our heads around, but I really felt this was a great presentation, how you broke it down and also addressed some of the key investments within the proposed budget. And before I get to that, I also want to thank you and your team, our paraeducators and our teachers for all the work that they do for our students. You live it every day. We might be introduced to it once every other week, so it's really important for us to understand what's involved to maintain a budget like this. The costs are volatile. We know that. We talk about it every year, and the complex students need often requires mandated services. And a lot of times we might get questions about, why are we adding, FTEs? And when it comes to mandated services, there are services that the students absolutely need and we need to provide, which you've outlined in the budget as, including the 3 new FTEs as a result of those mandates. I love the RISE program. To me, it's the crown jewel of this program, and it's just done so well for us. And you called out the $1.86 million roughly that it would cost to have a like program out of district. So I thought that was important. And also the circuit breaker reimbursement process can be kind of a popsicle headache, and I appreciate you kind of walking us through that as well. That's an important piece of this financial puzzle, and it's probably worth noting too that since like the May 2021 override, we've been in a better position in terms of the circuit breaker funding, where we have that kind of $2 million balance that, we could leverage to address, sudden costs. And prior to the override, we might have had a quarter of that to work with. So I think that's important for the public to know that we are in a position of strength in that space, which we haven't been prior to May of 2021. So thank you so much the presentation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Dr. Sawyer, any further comments?
I want to thank Ms. Belcito for the report. I just want to amplify a few of the things that the committee mentioned in context of the report. First off, you're correct that it's incredibly complex in terms of the work of the department. That extends to Ms. Belcito's role, which is an incredibly complex job. And for, in terms of scope, the number of students that we're serving in special education and staff that you spoke to earlier is larger than lots of local school districts alone, the entire district. So that's the kind of scope that we're talking about, given we're a larger district for the state. And there's all sorts of complexities within that. I think that, I also want to recognize the quality of the work that the staff is doing. I, too, really appreciate that Ms. Belcito was recognizing them through the hero emails and the nominations and nominating each other, which I think is really meaningful. Forgive me if I told this brief story before, but I was really struck. I happened to be at Beale School on the last day of the extended school year program in the summer, at the end of the 6 weeks of summer programming that followed closely on the heels of a whole school year. And our paraeducator staff and professional staff who were saying goodbye to the children, who had every right to be exhausted, were emotional because they were going to miss them, and they're going to be gone for about 2 weeks. The deep care that our staff has for our students who are served by this programming, I think is so evident, and I'm very proud of that. And there's just a sort of variety of needs that we serve as a result. Thankfully, I think the quality of what's happening is very high. Inevitably, there are disputes that arise in terms of the level of programming students might receive or have, and I know Ms. Belcito works very closely with her team, but ultimately, to try to resolve whether those are disputes. There's a legal framework for that, of course, and we want to make sure we resolve those in ways that are respectful of the family, are respectful of the professional judgment of the educators involved, and to try to come to a resolution that works ultimately with the focus on what's best for the student in mind. But there's not always agreement on that, and that's another complexity that comes with this work that Ms. Belcito leads in her department. And just finally, in addition to all the terrific programming, just another reminder that thanks to Ms. Belcito's leadership, all of our schools have become Special Olympics Unified Champion schools. We are a Special Olympics Unified Champion school district. The level of inclusion, meaningful inclusion of students who have a variety of needs has really improved. It's tremendously under the years that Ms. Belcito has been in this role, and I want to thank her for that as well. So, again, it's a complex budget, for a department and part of our overall budget, but I'm very confident that it's being managed extremely well in terms of all the ins and outs and the legal requirements, with a focus on how can we make sure we're providing the best educational experiences for our students. So thank you, and much appreciated.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your support. I appreciate it.
All right, the next item on our agenda is under Finance and Operations. It's a recommendation on fiscal year 2026 budget fees and tuition. Fee information and updates were provided to the school committee at the January 8th school committee meeting. The enclosed report focuses on 3 fee categories: transportation, athletics, and music lessons, and includes recommendations for each for review by the committee in advance of a planned vote at our next meeting on March 26th. And with that, I'll hand it back to you, Mr. Girardi.
Thank you. Just get our screen up here. I'll begin with a little bit of a disclaimer. Some of the slides that I'm showing here today, we did share on January 8th. So I'm not going to spend as much time as I did with them back then, just kind of as a reset to some of the local comps and some costing out. And if folks are interested in seeing more, I recommend going back to the January 8th school committee meeting where it was discussed in more depth. Okay, let me get back to here. Okay, so there's 3 fee recommendations that we'll be discussing tonight. We have the bus transportation fee, the athletic fee, and the music lesson fees. The bus transportation fee and athletic fee are both supplementary, where they do not cover the entire cost, but they do cover a portion and take the edge off of funds that are appropriated through the school department budget. Music lesson fees, those are the fees that fully support the after-school music lesson program. So our bus transportation fee currently is at $320 per student if they are paying the full tuition, with a $960 family cap, and that's for current year, fiscal year 25. We are at the highest end of the fees in our region. It shows in the middle of this slide here, but the ones above us are ones who do not pay a tuition. So our $320 per fee is the highest, with the median around at $250 and the mean at $231 per fee. So when we came on January 8th, we shared this slide here, which showed impact if we were to increase the budget, or if we were to increase the fee or decrease the fee. The current is at $320, and tonight our recommendation is to reduce the bus transportation fee from $320 to $300. And again, the family cap, that would reduce the family cap from $960 to $900. That is a difference of $43,400. Again, those dollars would be assumed by the fiscal year 26 the school department operating budget. So those are $43,400 that we would be building into our budget that we do not currently have there in fiscal year 25. Our athletic fees, again, for the high school athletic fee, this shows the history of the fees from fiscal year 16, where we currently sit at $325. This brings in about $370,000 in revenue. Again, it's a piece of the total athletic budget for the school year. There's a $975 family cap, and then there are some free and reduced costs for families who qualify. And again, that puts us pretty close to the top of our Mid-Watch League Mid-Watch Athletic League at $325, with a median at $250 and a mean at $243. And I will say that, the way that there are different circumstances for each of these different fees for the different towns. They're all set up slightly different. This is our best kind of attempt at trying to make it apples to apples and looking at some different types of fees that different schools, different districts offer. So again, our current fee is at $325. This slide here, again, we showed what we might make in revenue if we increase the fee, and what we would need to assume if we decrease the fee. So the current of $325 is there in yellow, and our recommendation tonight is to decrease the high school athletic fee to $300 per student with a $900 family cap. That would, again, reduce the overall revenue by $28,600 from the fees, which again we would assume into the school department operating budget. The middle school fees, we are towards the lower end of the Mid-Watch League when it comes to our middle school athletic fee. This is a fee that was introduced a few years back, and with the growth of this program and the kind of lower range of the fee, we are not recommending any change to the middle school athletic fee this evening to remain at $100 per fee. Again, music lessons, they're offered on a semester basis, and the fees support 100% of the instructor costs and program costs. Parents sign up on a semester basis and agree to pay the 14 lesson package. Following our January 8th meeting, I was charged with finding more districts that were able to, that are comparable to, having the same type of music fee, music lesson structure that Shrewsbury has. There aren't a lot of them in the state. We tracked down as many as we could find, thanks to Mr. Tom O'Toole and his network of music department directors across the state, and some research, and we were able to pull up a handful of other communities who do run the same type of music fee after-school programs to support the lessons. So we were able to find them. We find that we still remain right at the median and mean, slightly under the median and mean for each of these different programs. At this time, we are not in a place to recommend any changes to the music fee rates. So, school committee will be making will be voting on the fee rates at the March 26th meeting, which is 2 weeks from now. Next steps would be to seek public feedback, to see how the community feels about these recommendations, to review the recommendations from district management group's financial review, which we will be receiving within the day, and to see kind of long-term projections of how fees may impact both next year and future years budget scenarios, and then for a school committee vote on March 26th. With that, I'll happy to take any questions or any feedback that you may have.
Great, thanks so much. Appreciate the report. Colleagues, questions or comments about fees? Ms. Heffern.
Yeah, I want to thank you, Mr. Girardi and Dr. Sawyer, for the work here. I think you heard from us, certainly you heard from me kind of loud and clear that I was concerned about the fee levels in our district, and I think that we've gotten to be a high fee district, and yet that came at the time and place where, class sizes were pretty out of control. We were really at some breaking points, and so we got there. Making a choice, we're not in that space anymore. To wean ourselves off of these is also hard. And so I think this is both relatively modest reduction, but also prudent to acknowledge that if you're a family and you have 2 kids at the high school who take the bus and they do 2 sports a year, this is $140 back in their pocket, and that's meaningful and that's important. And so I think it's important that we think about what, just in the same way we're thinking about for Ms. Belsito, so like what compromises education today and what is different. I think people think that playing a sport and getting on the bus are sort of part of public education, and yet we've got a lot of fees that can potentially be barriers. And I acknowledge the important work that's done to try to make sure that those are reduced for families who qualify, but that we know there's a lot of families who might be just on the other side of that or are struggling to understand those processes. And so anything we can do to make sure that our kids are getting to school, we have a chronic absentee problem we're trying to address, and that they can engage in stuff that we know is really good for them. And those pro-social athletics we know are such a protective factor for young people. So I think the $71,000 in the budget, there was a point in time where I sat here and thought we could even be more aggressive, but I think it's a really good step forward to kind of pull ourselves back. And as we look over, many successive years, kind of thinking about what's the right place. And I agree with your assessment that right now the music program doesn't make sense, in part because those go directly to the instructor. Whether that's a model that for the long term we think makes sense or not, certainly something to think about. But I think these 2 changes on the athletic fees and the bus fees, I'm certainly in strong support of. So I look forward to hearing from the community about them and seeing what they think. But I know my kids are in lots of different activities and programs, and I feel like the only reason I have a checkbook anymore is to write checks for kids' fees, because everything else has gone online, and there's a lot of them. So I think this is one way to kind of help families who are trying to do their best to keep their kids engaged in a lot of important activities. So thank you very much for the work.
Yeah, thanks for the report. I think, we talk about fees a lot, every year, and certainly we have very high fees. A lot of it's to mitigate costs, and it's evolved over many years, at least since I've been on this board for the last 10 years. But I do like the recommendation to kind of look at opportunities to ease the burden on families, because there are many fees out there. We certainly see the comparisons, especially around the bus fees. And I think if we're in a position to consider this, I think it's a good first step in the right direction. So thank you very much. Dr. Sawyer, any further comments?
Thank you, Mr. Girardi, for the report, and I appreciate the work you did to make the determination, really illustrate where we are relative to other districts in the area, and what I think is a thoughtful recommendation that is aligned with the priorities and guidance that were given to us by the school committee to really examine, could we take some pressure off of families by reducing fees to some extent, and I think you've spoken to that. I think the plan does that in the context of the budget, is something that we're in a position, given the stability we have, that we're able to absorb and provide families with a little bit of relief during a time that's been inflationary, obviously, over the last few years for folks. So it is my recommendation that be what you would vote 2 weeks from now, but obviously you'll see what kind of feedback you get, and would ask that you vote on this at your next meeting.
Great, thank you so much, and definitely encourage the public to provide feedback on fees between now and our next scheduled meeting on March 26th. Thank you so much. The next item on our agenda is under old business. It is a vote on the school district calendar for 2025-2026 school year. Draft calendar was presented to the committee at the meeting on February 26th with a summary of changes provided by Dr. Sawyer. The draft calendar was posted on the district website for public comment. The Shrewsbury Education Association and Shrewsbury Paraprofessional Association officers were consulted. Dr. Sawyer's recommendation for the calendar is unchanged from the one presented on February 26th, and the proposed calendar is enclosed in our packet. I know we did receive some feedback from the public via email, kind of on, both, for and against. Open it up to the committee for any comments or questions about the calendar.
Well, first, I appreciate greatly any time that we ask for feedback and the feedback comes into us. So the feedback that did come to us, and like you said, it did kind of cover the gamut. There was a lot of different suggestions about it. For me, personally, I agree with Dr. Sawyer's recommendation, just because all things considered, I think the change for this year, especially as it relates to that first week of school, I think it gives a little bit more stability to students. I think it also takes into consideration like that first week when we go back for a couple days, and then, or you're off for a couple days, then you go back, and then you're off again. That could present to be a childcare issue for a lot of working families and parents and caregivers, but also thinking about the staff. I think for them, it gives them a really solid way to start the year in working, the teachers and the paras working together for 2 days to sort of do professional development and get together and get the classrooms. I think that 2 days beforehand is a nice lead into the first few weeks or a few days of school. So those things considered, for me, that is why I am going to agree with Dr. Sawyer on the recommendation for the school year's calendar as is.
Sure. Any further comments? Questions? Yeah, I do agree with Ms. Shrewsbury and Dr. Sawyer in terms of the recommendation. I do appreciate the feedback from the public as well. Certainly, we always enjoy getting feedback. It really helps us kind of, really think through these decisions. But I do appreciate the feedback that was provided by SEA and SPA and kind of the impact to their teams and the continuity that they'll have on that Monday, Tuesday, and then definitely heard feedback about the continuity for the students as well, to have those 3 consecutive days back to school after a full summer off. So definitely agree with the recommendation. Dr. Sawyer, any further comments before we take a vote?
No, I appreciate the feedback that you forwarded to me that the committee received, and as you mentioned, there, in terms of that first week of the school year, there was some comments on both sides of supportive or wanting to stay with the current approach. We've used both approaches in the past. It isn't brand new. We've done it both ways in the past, depending on our circumstances. I certainly have a great deal of put a lot of credence into our leadership team's recommendation around shifting it next year to have those 2 full days, as Ms. Shreveport just referenced, and also to be able to, especially some of our younger students, having that 4-day weekend right after the summer break and kind of having to being a little bit more challenging than only having the 3-day weekends. For all those reasons, that my recommendation stands there as well. One, I know a piece of feedback was about not having school on the 2 days prior to the December vacation and making that an even longer break. One piece that I did want to make clear is that if we were to do that, it would push in my opinion, the school year too far out into June. And if we have a bad winter, would really be extending into late June, particularly with having to now not have school on June 19th if we're in session then, if because of the Juneteenth holiday. But also in addition to that, because of state regulations, we would have to move the date of high school graduation as well, because that can only be so many days in advance of the scheduled last day of school for all other students. And that traditional Thursday after Memorial Day has been a long-standing tradition in Shrewsbury that I think is that I would not want to change to get 2 more extra days on what's already a pretty long December break, because it does take that weekend after January 2nd is a Friday. That would be a no-school day. So a couple of pieces for context there, but my recommended calendar that was presented at the last meeting is still my recommendation. But like you, I also appreciate the feedback people gave and their perspective. It helps us understand where people are coming from, and overall, I think it's a good calendar that will serve us well as they have in previous years as well.
Great. There being no further comments, need a motion that the school committee vote to approve the proposed 2025-2026 school year calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please do so by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. The next item on our agenda is the approval of minutes. The minutes from the school committee meeting held on February 26, 2025, and the school committee workshop held on March 5th, 2025 have been provided under separate cover. Any revisions or edits to recommend? There being none, they'll be accepted as written. We do need to enter into executive session this evening. Therefore, I need a motion to enter into executive session, A, for the purpose of addressing Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Sections 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements. Purpose 7, Open Meeting Law, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 22F and G, for the purpose of reviewing, approving, and/or releasing executive session minutes. And B, for the purpose of addressing Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect of the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Purpose 3, the Shrewsbury Education Association, Units A and/or B, the Shrewsbury Paraprofessional Association, and/or the Cafeteria Workers Association. And C, for the purpose of addressing Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy session in preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, non-union clerical and support staff and/or administrators. Purpose 2. And D, for the purpose of addressing Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements, federal and Massachusetts student record laws. Purpose 7, where deliberation in an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and return to open session only for the purpose of adjourning for the evening. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote is required. Ms. Fritz?
Aye.
Ms. Boucher?
Aye.
Ms. Sharifapour?
Aye.
Ms. Heffernan?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Thank you and good night.